All right, thank you. So, okay, last check. I hope everyone is ready for today's debate. Oh, third debate, last debate of the day. Okay, I'll start now if everyone's ready. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening I bid to everyone here. My name is Amir, as I'm sure you're all familiar, and I'll be your chairperson again for both of you, second time today, as well as timekeeper. And I would like to introduce our very esteemed judge, Sister Nabila, to judge today's debate. So I believe everyone is familiar with the rules. However, I will still briefly go through it again. You have 7 minutes to do your speech. Try not to exceed it, but try not to go too far below it. A bell will be rung after every consecutive minute. After 6 minutes, the bell will be rung twice. And after 7 minutes, the bell will be rung until you stop your speech. POIs can only be offered after the expiration of 1 minute and may not be given after the expiration of 6 minutes. Only give POIs to the opposite team, try not to be more than 15 seconds. Reply speech is 4 minutes of prep for both teams and then 4 minutes for both speeches. Opt first, gov after. Speakers, you should try and use formal language. Inappropriate language is prohibited. And the flow of the debate will start with the PM, followed by the LO, followed by the DPM, DLO, Gov Whip, and Op Whip. So that's all of the rules done and covered. The motion before this day is this House would ban the physical punishment of children by parents. The government team is YAP TRAP, with Bushra as first speaker from Gombak, Shamima as second speaker from CFS, and Humaira as third speaker from CFS. The reply speech will be Bushra from Gombak. Now, opposition team is NUH. We have Ikhwan as the first speaker from CFS. We have Adib as second speaker from Kuantan. And we have Imran as third speaker from CFS. Reply speech will be given by Adib, the second speaker. All right, let me just check something before I start. All right, all good, I think. So let me welcome our first speaker of the last debate of today, Bushra, from the government side, to open the floor for the government team. Please welcome.
Hello. Okay. First of all, we'll start by defining what physical abuse is. Physical abuse is intentional bodily injury. Some examples include slapping, pinching, choking, kicking, shoving, or inappropriately using drugs or physical restraints. This could also include spanking in many cases. Physical abuse is supposed to be universally frowned upon, and it is absolutely disgusting if a person thinks that abusing such an innocent thing as kids is justified in any way, shape, or form. Kids are innocent and need protection as they are young and they need nurturing, and this is the point in their life where they need the most love, kindness, caring, and gentle care. When kids are hurt physically, this could cause irreversible damage to their anatomy, either by scarring, burning, or bleeding, which could also need medical assistance and could cause like serious harm. Parents are given great responsibility by God to raise these innocent beings, and for some parents to intentionally cause some harm goes against the responsibility given by God, as God has ordained that parents have a great level of responsibility over the kids. And also, children did not ask to be to come into this world. So if sorry. kids did not ask to children did not ask to come into this world. So even though it's not something they choose, you shouldn't cause them harm just because they are causing you any kind of inconvenience, or you're trying to discipline them, because there are other means of disciplining children, such as by advising them kindly, or sitting down to their level and talking to them and
Right.
advising them. um, uh, Causing physical harm on kids is known to be. Sorry?
UI.
Huh?
UI. Is it? Oh, can I have the question?
What?
UI. Wait, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's a QI?
By your right, just now you mentioned, even in Islam, it mentioned that there are ways where you could punish a child by physical punishment, such as caning on the sole of their feet. What's your opinion on that?
My opinion on that is that Islam will never encourage extreme harm, and in some hadiths, it is mentioned that if a child doesn't pray, you are allowed to hit them. But in this sense, hitting isn't slapping, spanking, or shoving them. It's just a small reminder, like a small tap or a small nudge to, I guess, quote unquote, knock some sense into them. And I would also like to mention that the government has serious laws that protect kids, and uh, the serious laws prevents kids from being harmed. And there are many civil codes that are put there for the protection of kids that cannot defend themselves, and either by physical, because they are weak biologically, because they are not developed yet, or by means of talking back, because they are not really that skilled in talking, so they cannot really tell their parents to stop doing that. So yeah, I rest my case. Bye.
All right, I'll take it as that's the end of the first speaker's speech. So let's now continue the debate by welcoming in our second speaker of today, which is the leader of opposition, Ikhwan, to open up the debate for the opposition side. Please welcome.
Okay, so I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to the Honorable Judge, respected timekeeper, my fellow contender from the government side, and to my beloved comrades from outside. The motion for our debate today is that the House would ban the physical punishment of children by parents. So, first of all, I will define three three words, which is physical punishment, children, and parents. So physical punishment is punishment which is intended to cause physical pain to a person. Meanwhile, children is a young human being below the age of puberty or below the legal age of majority. And lastly, parents is a person's father or mother. Okay, so we agree with the definition given by the government team. However, we, the opposition team, believe that the statement is false, and our stance is physical punishment is a necessary punishment for children. Today, as the first speaker, I will be talking to you, I will explain to you about why physical punishment is necessary for children. Okay, so physical punishments are allowed to punish the children, but only allowed in these three conditions. First, we must not cause permanent physical damage to the children. Second, only when the children is having a rude manner or extremely offensive, or when it comes to resort when verbal punishment is not working. And lastly, forms physical punishment. Physical punishment is a form of strict reminder, which isn't often. So to put it simply, physical punishment is our last resort or an alternative punishment for the children. Okay, so why we support this statement? Because children cognitive processing is not the same as adult. So they aren't aware of lasting consequences of what they do. Second, it is a fundamental to keep the child behaviors so they are not so they will behave and not behave immorally in the future. As one of the saying goes, action speaks louder than words. Okay, so now the Prime Minister of the government team just now has tried to tell us the Prime Minister of the government team just now just give us a statement that prove our side. So it's actually kind of look like they are not supporting the ban of the physical punishment to the children. So I can see why we can do the physical punishment to the children. So it's actually kind of supporting our point here. Okay, so here I will tell my arguments. I will tell one arguments, and my second speaker will tell two arguments. Okay, so my argument is physical punishment is some kind of like negative, is some kind of negative type of reinforcement. Why? Because it is one of the things that we can do to teach the children a lessons so that they will listen to us more and learn from it and not repeating the same mistakes. So why this reinforcement, negative reinforcement is important? Because parents can teach their child a lesson so that they won't repeat the same mistake in the future. And even if they repeat it, they will remember about the physical punishment and might not be brave to do it again. For example, in US, parents are more lenient with their children, causing them to act harshly and immorally when they grow up. So, members of the House, in conclusion, we believe that the House should not ban the physical punishment of the children because
physical punishment is said that is one of the way to teach the children a lesson. It is acceptable and it's fundamental to keep the children a good lesson, to make them remember their action is wrong and make them to not repeat the same mistake again. But my argument is, um, I stand with the house that should ban this physical punishment of children by parents because first of all, it gives harmful and psychological effect. This is because giving physical punishment to the children not only will damage the relationship with parents, but also will cause the mental health. So let's see how they can damage the relationship with parents. First of all, as we all know, many Asian parents that practice this kind of style of punishment to their children, right? So uh, to this generation, what happened to to this generation that their parents practice this kind of style? They are having a lots of depression, this anxiety, and this effects this cause them to not uh being open up to their parents and being this kind of action also broke the trust of them to their parents, because parents is a place for children to to give them uh parents is a place for them to open up anything they think they have any problems, or parents also is a caregiver for the children, so they should really be lenient with them, but not necessarily uh let them make any mistake. For example, if the children have any mistake that because of the any mistake that even the lenient punishment will not work on them, there are another ways for them to be teach of. For example, be a good role model to them. So one of the reasons why children make mistakes or any actions that cause harm or any actions that really uh unacceptable is because they see or they saw what their parents act like. So parents is a really a good model. Parents should be a really good model to their children. This is why I stand with to ban physical punishment of children by parents. Secondly,
UI.
yes.
Let's say in a worst case scenario where both parents are role models and the parents have always reminded the child and they've always reminded them and never have used any physical punishment, the most that they'll use is a verbal punishment, but they still misbehave in a very offensive manner. How will your side treat those children?
Okay, as I said just now, physical punishment, as well know, physical punishment is really in a aggressive way, like spanking, choking, like some kind of thing or whatnot. We can give them any punishment, but not to really give them the pressure until that will cause them a harmful or psychological effect to them. So you can give them a punishment, but not to really give them a pressure, if you understand what I mean. So this motion said that physical punishment, which means that like a really aggressive punishment, if the children is really not follow what the parents said, there's really any other way, right? Really, there's another way, like to be a good role model, or really not to let them be too in uh, you know the gadgets and really into the gadgets, or the gadgets also the ones of the influence of their behavior, right? So you can prevent them from be too into the gadgets. So I think that is this should be banned, this physical punishment to the children, because the children will really lose their trust, will really not they will not have a real communication like parents and children should have. So, in to conclude, this house should ban physical punishment because parents is place for children to rely on, to trust, and parents should be a good role model in a daily life. Because imagine if they become abuser of imagine if they become abuser in their life as because of the experience they experience from their parents lifestyle. So that's all from me.
All right. Thank you very much for the speech from the Deputy Prime Minister. Now let's move on to the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Adib from Content to the floor.
Am I audible?
Yep, all good.
Wait, ah. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Side opposition really condemns the act of physical abuse towards children. Side opposition stands where there is importance of taking care of your children at the same time, trying to teach them what are the consequences of living in the bigger world. At the end of the day, what side opposition is trying to fight is a stronger system or a support system which can actually help to empower not only parents but also children in a way that doesn't consolidate them to worst case scenarios such as physical abuse. And that's why, going on to our rebuttals, what have we seen in today's debate? Side government came out and said that we would potentially ban physical punishment and physical abuse simply because it's universally frowned upon. It can cause irreversible damage and etc. etc. But somehow along the way, during a POI, the Prime Minister even mentioned, quote unquote, physical punishment is allowed to make sense into that. Where for us, we don't see that this is actually the case that is supposed to be brought by the side government, but regardless of that, we still engage with them. All right. So, firstly, my leader of opposition mentioned 3 characters in which we define how do we believe physical punishment is allowed in cases, for example, not cause for permanent physical damage, if the child has been behaving in an extremely offensive manner, given that verbal reminders have been repeated multiple times, and even as a form of straight reminder, meaning that this isn't the mainstay treatment or remedy that we want to imply upon children. Just because they spilled a cup of water doesn't mean that we're going to slap them or choke them or suddenly push them down the stairs. No, we're not going to do those kinds of things. Simply because on our side, we believe that these reminders which exist only as a form of alternative punishment. We tell you today that side opposition does not believe that physical punishment is equal to physical abuse. Physical abuse is the act of intentionally committing or implying a physical damage or harm upon the person or individual, given that this is the child. But in our case, physical punishment as only a form of negative reinforcement, which is basically trying to teach them that certain actions cause a negative repercussion. These repercussions are very necessary because at a small age, these children are still understanding what the complexity of life is. Like my Prime Minister, leader of opposition mentioned, this is where the children's cognitive processing is very low. It's compared to adults. It's not something as if we give them a one-time reminder, it's going to be hit on them. They'll be reminded on every single day. It's going to be a multiple series of events reminding over and over again. Hence, when it comes to worst case scenarios or certain alternatives where we need to really remind them of the consequences of a certain action, this is where it comes into place. For example, a life-threatening condition. For example, if you play with your phone constantly while charging, it might blow up, for example, right? So these are the kind of things that we don't want to happen to children. We need to remind them, and as the form, if they are misbehaving, we will resort to this as the alternative. And secondly, the Deputy Prime Minister came and raised the issue on mental health issues. Of course, that will probably happen, but also verbal punishment also exists and gives mental health issues. Even if you read through the DSM-5 mental disorders surveillance for characterizations, it's not necessarily as simply because you hit them one time, they're automatically having mental health. That's how on our side, we don't believe in physical harm which abuses permanent physical damage. We tell you that our damage that we want to imply is the positive damage, the kind of damage that teaches that life is something that you need to fix and improve upon. In fact, government also mentioned regarding if you're being a good role model, then these children will still grow up and become a good child. No, that's not necessarily the case, because children have different characters, they have different personalities. It's not as easy as, oh, if you follow your mom and dad, you'll become a good person when you grow up. What about minority minority or marginalized communities? What about single mothers who cannot maintain as much as possible? Is it fine for them to just be as lenient as possible for their children when there is a larger thing at stake, which is the future of their children? So let's go on to the argumentations of side opposition today. We tell you that first, my Prime Minister mentioned that this is as a form of negative reinforcement. Because why? Our mentality was never to harm them. Our mentality was never to make them be afraid or scared of parents. Our mentality was simply to educate them, to let them know that this is something that you should avoid at all all times at all states. And secondly, moving on to my second argument, we want to shape the child's fundamental character or behavior. At this growing age, it's something that is necessary, but at the same time avoidable. Something that when it comes to children who misbehave, this is something where we come to provide them with negative reinforcement. We're not going to give negative reinforcement to a well-behaved child. That doesn't make sense. That's what we tell you. For example, there's a case in Sweden where a child didn't pray, and then the mom caned her son. So this is something that is an example of if it were to go to permanent physical damage, yes, of course it will be bad. But we tell you, because the child did not perform prayers and refused, even though from multiple reminders, this is something that is crucial to be put upon. We need to tell them that if this is left untreated, they will grow up to become irresponsible and lacking of what they understand of the surroundings. And they are reminded of the important things of their current life. They are more observant to their surroundings. When they grow up in the long term, in the long run, they finally understand and realize that the upbringings that their parents gave, like each and most of us, since we're Asian, probably, we understand that this is something that actually gives us. It's not that simply because you get caned multiple times, you wanted the trauma. No, parents don't imply that. And we tell you that children remember experiences rather than words. Do you recall whenever your mom gave you an advice when you were like a growing child, going into your adolescence age? You know, you'll probably remember the memories, the experiences which happened. Or for example, when I refused to pray or refused to follow their actions, they decided to cane minimally, for example, on the sole of my feet, but the nerve endings are minimal and it wouldn't really cause permanent damage, then yes, probably that's something that will remind them, oh, then this is something that needs to be cultivated upon, a form of negative reinforcement. We tell you, okay, how can we actually make this better? On side opposition, we vouch for strengthening and strictening laws so that it can support child protection services. We tell you we can better strengthen the current existing laws. We tell you that we can increase the current support system, for example, counselors in schools, where this can actually help and cultivate the child to understand what is currently going on. If they're having any issues, they can have these alternatives. They have laws to protect them. They have counselors to actually protect them. Of course, the law wouldn't prosecute someone just because they decided to flick the child's ear because they misbehave. They will do something when they will act upon when the child themselves act in a very unresponsive manner. And my last argument is basically to strengthen their mental resilience in understanding consequential actions. Children don't understand the balance between life and death. They need to understand that there are things which will cause a very detrimental effect. For example, if you keep playing with knives, you'll probably stab yourself, you'll probably injure yourself. And we need to tell them, if you keep playing with this is going to cause you harm. Of course, leniency is important, but we tell you, with too much leniency, children will always misbehave, given that they know that there are no consequences that are affecting them. And that's why we tell you that in these events which trigger them to remind themselves on the issues or the consequences of these actions, we need to always maintain that as side opposition has always been vouching for, physical punishment as the form or last resort alternative rather than physical abuse. With that, side opposition is more than happy to oppose. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to the second speaker from opposition side. So now I'd like to welcome the last speaker from the government side, Humaira, the government whip, to the floor.
Assalamualaikum. You guys can hear me?
Waalaikumsalam. Yes, Ken.
All right. So assalamualaikum to all my fellow debaters, speakers, and cautious timekeeper. So now I am the government whip and will summarize this debate by focusing on the issues that we've been discussing by the government side. So let us firstly recap the key points raised by the government side throughout this debate. So firstly, my prime minister said that okay, my prime minister said that this physical punishment may cause physical impacts. This is truly true because these physical impacts can cause physical injury, can cause harm, including bruises, cut, like broken bones, and also in severe cases, it can lead to serious injuries that requiring the medical intervention. And also, it will give pain and discomfort to the children, right? And the children bodies can be distressing and traumatized and lead to the physical fear.
I would like to also add on this physical impacts point where it can decrease the physical well-being, including like disrupted sleep and appetite changes. These appetite changes, like, okay, let me give an example. Like, how can you go to the dining table after you getting heat, right? With how can you eat peacefully? So it can lead to conflict and misunderstanding. Next, the second point by the deputy government, she says that it these physical punishment can cause harmful and psychological effects, where these effects can be increased to aggression, antisocial behavior, and mental health issues in children. And also that, like she said, it can break the trust and damage the parent-child relationship. Like they live in constant fear and being punished. This increases the stress level that they may have trouble communication. That also lead to loneliness. Like how can you make friends? How can you talk when you have um fearing your controlling your emotion and all that. This also means the interpersonal difficulties, what I mean just now, like the inner self have problem of communicating. All right, so now let us address the key arguments put forth by the opposition, and I would like to demonstrate why they lack of subjects. So first of all, the prime minister, the opposition, the leader opposition said that just now, this physical punishment as the strict reminder. So I totally not agree with that, because it making them remember physical punishment. Like you said that the strict reminder, the word strict, it making them making them remember the physical punishment and give them moments of anger, frustration, these intense emotions, making it more memorable, and give the children bad impression of their parents, right? And next, the deputy of opposition said that the LO said that this physical punishment is a alternative punishment. Like I see your points, but okay, so but I don't agree with it. So let me explain. The alternative punishment, there are many more various form of the alternative punishment. Like we can give a positive reinforcement, like setting clear boundaries. You can talk, right? Like we have mouth. So we always hear communication is the key.
Why?
So I'm sorry I decline your POV. Let me finish um my talk. So there are more human ways to discipline your children. Um to conclude my talk here, my arguments, there are many ways others to discipline your children, and we need to balance of how the ways we're approaching. Like we include the sympathy, we include the emotions and all that. So that's all for me. Thank you.
No PUI?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so let's say in the condition where a child decided to poke a fork through the electrical outlet, right? And then their parents kept reminding, but the child refuses to do so. What kind of positive reinforcement would you do towards the child?
Like I said, the positive reinforcement, like we can talk, like you can discuss, right? Like for example, you doing you talk back, so you can clear you can give a clear boundaries, like okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. That is the positive reinforcement, and we can also show the example how to do that. That's my yeah, that's my point. Is that answer your POI?
Hey, thank you.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that as the wrap up for the government whip. Very well done, and thank you for your speech. So now let's move on to the last debater of this debate, which is the third speaker and government whip of opposition, Imran, to the floor.
Hello there. Am I audible?
Yep,
Loud and clear?
yep.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me if I have a bit of coughing issue. Yeah, I'm still recovering. So yeah, just excuse that. All right, so I'll be starting my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for inviting me to the floor. Thank you to side government for providing me points to rebut, and thank you to my side for actually providing the points that's true to the debate. All right, so basically we're debating on the House will ban physical punishment or physical abuse on your kids. Short. So basically, let's do a recap. So basically, the prime minister stated that define what is beating or what is physical abuse or physical punishment, and she also agreed to our terms, which is that hitting a child is actually allowed because it said so in religion, which has already contradicted what they are fighting for in the first place. All right, so for DPM, he gave the arguments on psychological impact and damaged relationship with parents. And I also forgot to add that the Prime Minister also stated that kids don't there are phone and other means of educating kids. So basically, what going back to the Deputy Prime Minister, basically he stated on psychological impact and damaged relationship with parents, which leads to depression, anxiety, and shaky relationships with parents and whatnot. And she also stated that mistakes should be corrected with kindness. For government whip, she just recapped of everything what we have said earlier, and she also stated that, and also tried to attempted to strengthen her team's points. All right, so that's what the government brought up. Let's see what our side brought up. So basically, what our side brought up is basically we made a mechanism that has not been challenged the whole debate, ladies and gentlemen. Because why? Basically, we want to when we want to punish kids, we already said earlier, if you want to punish kids, we already gave the guidelines. You can only hit them at specific places, only if they are misbehaving, and as a last resort for how they if they are not responding to any other sort of corrective methods. So basically, our lead opposition has already explained the mechanism and explained that the kids' cognitive processes are not the same as adults, which is why it's necessary that physical punishment isn't must, but with the guidelines, so that we do not fall under what has the negatives that have been brought up by side government. So, and he's also brought a comparison of words between Asian kids and kids from other countries. So our DLO has basically strengthened our points to the point where challenge, yes, please.
You said that physical punishment has a guideline, right? Can you explain what is the guideline for the physical punishment?
All right, so basically we already explained in our mechanism that physical punishment must have not cause permanent physical damage, only when the child is having a extremely offensive manner, and is as a last resort to basically if he's not responding to any other corrective punishments, and as a form of strict reminder, which is not often. Basically, that's been already highlighted at the beginning of the debate and by our deputy leader opposition, which apparently you have not been listening to, as you have raised that question. So thank you very much for the eye and wasting a bit of my time. So basically, all right. So Diallo has already counteracted most of what has been brought up by the government side in the first place, such as if what and one question that side government has failed to answer is that what if the child, even if you even if you try and correct them in your kind manner, in your kind methods, but they still must behave. So how do you correct that? Basically, we already gave our answer by sort of position, which is by physical punishment. But according to the guidelines, according to the guidelines, and he also brought up that the purpose of physical punishment is to educate and to strengthen mental resilience and to shape the child's behavior so that it will become a better person in what you call it in in the future. And so I would like to let's do a comparison of votes. Our point is clash whether physical punishment is a good thing or not. Is it? Well, the side government complete as I recapped earlier, side government has completely ignored all the benefits that we highlighted if we follow the guidelines. Because what side government has already brought up is basically what happens if we do not follow the guidelines that we highlighted earlier. Say if your parent just beats your child without any proper reason, then yeah, that's a problem there. That's a problem. We do not deny that's a problem. But say if the child is being unresponsive to your what you call it to your corrective methods, then yeah, it is a sound method to make it actually it is a sound method to actually do the problem. Yes, please.
Okay, you mean that the verbal punishment is not working? What do you mean by that? Is there
Alright.
other suggestion other than that?
All right. So verbal punishment is your punishment on your side, right? So let's say that verbal punishment does not work. Mean to say, you just say, all right, please don't do this. It's dangerous. Please don't that. Is harmful. Please don't. This will happen. But say if the child still does not respond, have you? I mean, me as a child myself, I've already been if I've already undergone both verbal and physical punishments myself. And yeah, because what I call it, verbal punishment comes first before you do the physical punishment. If you already told the child not to do this thing many times, but they're still doing it, then yeah, physical punishment is an option. And yeah, I listened when they started the physical punishment. So yeah, basically we already highlighted our benefits on our side, basically making them more disciplined and not making them a burden to society, in fact. Because why? Basically, when you raise your child, right, with the punishment that we highlighted, then yeah, they're going to be better people. And when they become better people, then there won't be a problem in society because society is already going down, and the children are our hopes for the betterment of society. So Sun Tzu once said that treat your soldiers as your own children. And if you treat your own children and if you treat your own children with too much kindness, then yeah, they will be wrong as well. There will be a problem in there. So you have to be balanced. And this is and also has highlighted the balancing method. Out of that, I would like to rest my case.
All right. Thank you very much to the final speaker. And okay, well, now it is time for the prepping of reply speeches. Both teams will be given 4 minutes, and afterwards, each team has 4 minutes of their reply speech. So I'll be using this timer. Once this timer is done, I will return. All right, please use your time wisely. All right, and that's the bell. So I hope everyone's ready. We will start with the opposition's summary speaker. So let's please welcome Adib for to close up and wrap up the debate for the opposition side. Adib, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I'm audible, right?
Yep. All good.
So I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Side government has been yapping on and on and on about how the concept of physical abuse is probably similar to physical punishment, and how somewhat they are making a world sound where physical punishment exists every single day, which will lead them to have mental health issues, losing of friends, etc., etc. Well, side opposition is trying to teach you how physical punishment is allowed, but only in necessary forms to ensure that the students are the children are able to grow up to become reasonable people. So what are the clashes to this debate? First of all, let's take a look between nature versus nature. Given that nature is basically the less punishable one, and the nurture is the more the inclusion of a physical punishment. We tell you that first, when you do nature these students with the children with a sense of freedom, giving them minimal repercussions, telling them that certain things it's fine whether they accept it or not, and there are no things or no severities which will incline to them. This will actually potentially lead to children becoming more mischievous. Well, on our side, we tell you that as an alternative punishment, this will actually curb them from harm or consequential actions, because know what they're doing. They don't know that if they decide to juggle knives and forks, it might not endanger them, and they might think that they'll be revived like the games that they watch and Roblox, etc. Secondly, we tell you regarding the second clash is regarding physical punishment as a form of last resort alternative versus other inefficient methods, for example, positive reinforcement and talking. We tell you, yes, positive reinforcement works. That's why on our side, our mechanism and our clear stance from a leader of opposition has mentioned that this is an alternative punishment, which we do not want to be banned. We tell you that parents have the right to actually execute certain punishments to teach their children as a form of lesson. And we tell you over and over again that this is only as a form of reminder to avoid them from committing any worrying issues or things that actually could harm them in a real world life crisis. We tell you that, of course, not all children are the same. And I've mentioned it as well regarding the endangering of child's future and how can this actually benefit them in shaping their fundamental character behavior from small age. But however, side government today just seems to not understand that our side is trying to fight for a better future on the current spot while they grow up to become better people. And the last clash that we see in today's debate is basically the concept of banning physical punishment versus improving the current protection services, which I mentioned in my speech just now. Firstly, the side government mentioned that regarding how physical punishment should be banned, but then they became contradictory. They suddenly said that it's actually fine to have physical punishment, which outside we didn't really understand what is side government is trying to fight for. Either they're fighting for the freedom to watch more Roblox videos or the freedom to actually just do whatever they want. But on our side, we tell you that this form of teaching or this form of education is probably the most effective method to actually remind them. Of course, the government also mentioned to remind them, because consequential actions do derive from these methods. If they are reminded of how important or how dire these certain actions are, only then will they be reminded that this is something that they need to avoid at all matters. And we tell you that there will be minimal repercussions without actually alerting them on the important part. Because, of course, like my entire side has been mentioning regarding the cognitive processing of children. Children, they don't necessarily understand what are the consequences of things. They need to be educated in certain ways, whether it is in the form of a verbal way or in terms of role model or even inaction. That's what we tell you. When there are cases where this is something that needs dire action, this is the alternative we provide you. And the point that was not engaged at all by side government was when we mentioned regarding to strengthen and enforce law services for child protection services, as well as and strengthening counselor-based school counselor support systems at schools, which basically had not been reciprocated at all. And we tell you at our side, we think that banning the act of physical punishment just criminalizes parents more rather than actually protecting their services. Because at the end of the day, if these parents are criminalized for the act of physical punishment and go to jail, what will happen to the child if they are gone? So we think that the alternative of actually strengthening the current support system is way better. That's why the side opposition fights not only for the relativity of parents being able to have children who listen, but also for a world where children can grow up to become useful people, like side opposition today. Thank you very much. We are more than happy to host.
All right. Thank you very much to the summary speaker for opposition side. And now I'd like to welcome the last speaker of the government, as well as the last speaker for today and the last speaker for the debate of today, to sum up the points for the government team and this debate as a whole. Let's please welcome Bushra from Gumbel.
I'm about to mention some points that will prove that we are the winners of this debate. First of all, the NUH group keeps mentioning that they're supposed to, sorry, that there are supposed to be guidelines to physical punishment. But then again, the line between too much and too less physical punishment is always blurry. And they keep mentioning that I said that physical punishment was okay when I never said that. I simply said tapping or nudging them is okay. And to reintroduce the question that one of the members asked, which is, what if a child is playing next to a cable? How can you discipline them verbally? I will simply carry that child away. Slapping that child or smacking them on the skin is not going to teach them that that playing with cables is wrong. It's just gonna hurt them, hurt their skin, and cause them to internalize that hitting a person is okay as long as I'm doing something wrong. They will learn that behavior and they will implement that on their friends at school. And kids are kids; they are less cognitively developed than adults. So although an adult may be able to follow certain guidelines, quote unquote, a child is not. So when a child learns physical punishment and they do it on their friends, they might exceed the line and they might do it too hard or too less. They might poke their friends with a pencil and cause them bodily harm. Also, I said that, I'm sorry, hold on. Yeah, so basically, teaching a child through verbal means is more than okay. It's a child is very capable of understanding and being advised. And if you are a good role model to them, as my members mentioned in the first place, then they will never play beside cables. If you instill good manners in them, if you instill that, oh, the cable is dangerous because of this, playing with boiling water is dangerous because of this, if you clearly define the factors that make certain things dangerous, a child will never approach that place in the first place. They would never expose themselves to that danger. Children are able to feel pain. Their nervous system is developed. They can feel pain, they can feel burning sensation. And I've seen it with my own two eyes that I've seen a mother lightly slap her child on the back, and the child said that, "Oh, you slapped me on the back," and the mother kept saying that it was just a light smack, and the mother kept trying to justify it. See, when you like say that, oh, it's okay under certain guidelines, you will internalize that you are entitled to physically punishing your child, and you might exceed that. And it's more than likely, because I've seen this happen with my own two eyes, and I've seen this happen in real time. I've seen parents exceed the limit, and I've seen parents pinch their children too hard or smack their children too hard because the lines between too much and too less physical punishment is blurring. And of course it will blur. At the end of the day, we're humans. Imagine if you sat in front of the Prophet and smacked your child and tried to justify it. What would the Prophet think? Do you think the Prophet ever hit his child? Do you think the Prophet ever hit Fatima? Do you think the Prophet would ever hit a child? If you think no, obviously you're not going to do it. We as Muslims are here to to follow behind the steps of the Prophet. And if you think that the Prophet wouldn't be happy with it and wouldn't be okay with it, why would you do it just because, oh, there are certain guidelines? If the Prophet never did it, you should never do it in the first place. The Prophet also said that it's harmful to slap a person's face, and you should not cause a stinging sensation or any form of pink skin to appear on your child's skin. And if I would like to rest my case by saying that if the Prophet wouldn't be okay with it, then you shouldn't be okay with it. You shouldn't try to justify it in any way.
Sister Nabila to give her verbal education. Although, never mind, I do believe this run is a silent run. Everyone must go back to the main discussion room as there will be more information and also announcements on the break. Yeah, so that's about it. Thank you very much.
Hello.
To oppose, thank you.
Alrighty, I'd like to thank the speaker for the summary and welcome the last speaker of the government, Iman, to sum up for their team and the debate as a whole.
Okay, thank you very much. I will now begin my reply speech. Now, our first speaker uh, has defined physical abuse as physically putting their hands on the children, whether spanking, hitting their children, even lightly or even lightly is considered physical abuse. And she proposed that this action is a breach of a children's right to their own bodies, their own health by their parents. And foregoing this will provide societal benefits, which the opposition says that, which the third speaker of the opposition says our first speaker never elaborated on, which they did. She elaborated that it will cause children to become more empathetic, will promote non-violence, inside children, which will benefit society greatly. And will benefit children by improving the relationship between child and parent. Now, the crux of the argument for the opposition side is they keep saying that physical abuse is not equal to physical punishment is not equal to physical abuse, but physical abuse. But they because they keep saying that the intention is different, but the intent does not matter. The intent does not matter. If at the end of the day, it ends up with a child getting hurt, the intention does not matter, or whether if they intend it to be something good or something bad. What matters is the action. And then they keep harping on it is required. Oh, this frequently is required because children will listen. That children will listen, and you have to hit them to make them listen. Which I rebutted, saying that studies have shown that this will not cause children to listen to their parents more. It will simply cause them to avoid punishment. And while that may work in the short term, it will not work in the long term, as physical punishment has proven to only make children trust their parents more and still continue doing that again. The opposition side also harps on that the government is keeps on saying that the government is saying that emotional abuse is fine as long as it's not physical. That was never one of our arguments, and they have failed to explain how banning physical punishment will cause people to resort to emotional punishment instead of the more logical conclusion of them simply talking to children. This is an extreme view of saying, the extreme view of saying if parents can't physically punish their children, they will resort to emotional punishment. This is quite an extreme view, which stems from them believing that that the only way to make a child listen is by keeping them in line with fear, which is something that we 100% believe is not true. They also bring up they they also bring up that we never mentioned that we never gave a mechanism on how this works, even though I very clearly did uh, mention mechanism during my speech that the act of physical discipline itself can be reported by other people in the child's life, such as their teachers, their friends, their other family members. But they ignore that and simply ran with the argument that we do not have an alternative, even though we do. And our alternative is not to normalize emotional abuse. It is to normalize a different, better solution, which they keep denying and saying that in our world, emotional abuse is normalized when that's never been our intention. Thank you.
Now, that wraps up our final speaker for the debates. Now, as you all may know, that this is the silent round of this is the silent round for today, and therefore this debate ends here. Thank you all for the great debate. Let's give ourselves a very great round of applause. And last but not least, any adjudication and results will not be announced now,